Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's talk about a word we all think we know, church. But what if I told you its original meaning is something, well, completely different? And honestly, a lot more dramatic.
So, when I say the word church, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Go on, just take a second and picture it.
For a lot of us, it's probably a specific building, right? Maybe with a steeple. Or maybe you think of a big organization, a whole denomination. And hey, in today's world, it could even be a community you join through a live stream. All of these are totally common, modern ideas.
But here's the kicker. What if one of the clearest examples in the Bible of the original word for church wasn't a worship service at all? What if it was actually a riot? Yeah, an angry, chaotic mob.
All right, so to figure this out, we've got to go back to the original language. The New Testament word that we translate as church is the Greek term ecclesia, and its real meaning? Way simpler than you'd probably guess.
So, according to the source material, ecclesia just means an assembly. That's it. It's not a building, it's not an institution or some virtual organization. It's simply a physical gathering of actual real people all together in one spot.
And believe it or not, the Bible itself gives us this absolutely wild, dramatic story from the ancient city of Ephesus that just perfectly illustrates this superphysical definition.
So here's how it went down. You've got this silversmith, Demetrius, and he gets his fellow craftsmen all fired up. Why? Because the message of the gospel is spreading, and it's killing their business of selling little silver shrines. So this anger just boils over, spills into the streets, and pretty soon the whole city is in an uproar. Before you know it, this massive, chaotic mob rushes into the local amphitheater.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. Check this out. The biblical text describes this event, and 3 separate times it calls this confused, angry mob an ecclesia, an assembly.
So let's be super clear about what this particular ecclesia was. It was absolutely not Christian. It wasn't holy. It wasn't doctrinally correct in any way, shape, or form. But it was an ecclesia for one and only one reason. It was a real, physical bunch of people gathered together in one spot.
Right. So the story wraps up when a city official finally gets everyone to calm down, and then he says this one crucial thing. He dismissed the assembly.
And boom! That right there illustrates the source's main point perfectly. The very second that crowd broke up and went home, the ecclesia was gone. It just ceased to exist. The people were still around, of course, but the assembly, the gathering itself, was over.
Okay, so you might be thinking, all right, that's just some ancient linguistic quirk, right? But what is so fascinating is how this exact same dynamic, what an assembly is and what happens when two of them literally collide, played out in a really modern context.
And this table just lays out the parallels so clearly, it's pretty wild. In ancient Ephesus, you had an assembly of craftsmen worried about their jobs. In modern Minnesota, you had an assembly of believers gathered for worship. Now, in both cases, a second, opposing assembly physically marched into their space. A chaotic mob in Ephesus, a protest group in Minnesota. This created a direct, tangible clash, and the result, exactly the same. Civil authorities had to step in, restore order, and in the end, disperse the gatherings. And in that moment, both of those assemblies, they were over.
So, what's the big deal? What does all this mean for how we think about the word church today? I mean, why does this difference between an assembly and an institution even matter?
Okay, this is really where the rubber meets the road. The source draws this super clear line between the original ecclesia, which is physical, it's temporary, and it only exists when people are actually gathered, and our modern idea of church. We tend to think of it as an institution, right? An organization that's permanent. It exists as a concept even when everyone's at home on a Tuesday night. And look, this isn't just playing with words. This difference fundamentally changes how we think about community and what it means to belong.
So what that means is an ecclesia isn't just a label you wear or a group you identify with online. And this is a big one. According to this definition, it's not a virtual meeting. It has to be a tangible, real-world event. It's something you can physically go to, something you can be a part of, and, as we've seen, something that can literally be disrupted. You see, there's a kind of vulnerability, a reality to it, that an abstract organization or even a live stream just doesn't quite have.
Yeah, so it all boils down to this. What does it mean to actually be together? It's really a question of presence over platform. I mean, just think about it for a second. That ancient riot in Ephesus, the modern clash in Minnesota, they both show us that an assembly is a real, physical thing with real, physical consequences.
It's something that can get confused, get warned by an official, get disrupted by another group, and ultimately get dismissed.
And that brings us right to the core takeaway from all this. The biblical idea of ecclesia, it's fundamentally defined by physical presence. It's about people together in one place. It's not defined by the name of the organization, the fancy building, or the digital platform they're using.
So this all leaves us with a pretty challenging question, doesn't it? If the original idea was so deeply rooted in physical, face-to-face presence, what do we gain? And maybe more importantly, what do we lose when our main communities become institutions or exist on screens? It really forces us to ask ourselves, what does it truly mean to gather, to assemble, to be a church in our modern and, let's face it, often disconnected world?